Welcome to NewsX World. I'm Asuma Katauka and you are watching NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the top stories. US President Donald Trump has threatened to substantially raise tariffs on India over its purchases and alleged reselling of Russian oil. India has slammed the move as unjustified and unreasonable, stating the US had previously encouraged such imports. Russia launched air attack on the Ukrainian town of Lozova in Kharkiv region, injuring several people, including 2 children, according to local official Serhiy Zelensky. In this overnight strike, critical infrastructure, homes, and apartment buildings were damaged, according to Ukrainian authorities. China insists it has the final say in choosing the next Dalai Lama, rejecting the Nobel laureate's assertion that his reincarnation will be determined by his own institution and likely outside China. Gama Sidain, Deputy Secretary of the Chinese Communist Party Committee in Tibet, said that the central government will use a domestic search and approval process. Brazil's Supreme Court Justice Alexandre de Moraes ordered former President Jair Bolsonaro under house arrest in Brasilia on Monday for violating a social media ban during his trial for allegedly plotting a coup. Bolsonaro, who ruled from 2019 to 2022, is now barred from receiving visitors except lawyers and using mobile phones, with police seizing several devices from his home. Colombian court has rejected former President Alvaro Uribe's request for temporary freedom while he appeals his 12-year house arrest sentence. The 73-year-old, convicted of witness tampering and obstructing justice, is the first former leader of Colombia to be criminally sentenced. Greece will spend hundreds of millions of euros to bolster its domestic defense industry, with 3 homegrown anti-drone systems, including the Centaurus, set to enter mass production in 2026, according to media reports. Bangladesh marks 1 year since former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina fled to India on August 5, 2024, amid deadly student-led protests that killed hundreds and injured thousands. The country of 173 million is now governed by an interim administration led by 85-year-old Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus, who has struggled to deliver promised electoral and institutional reforms. Japan has recorded its highest ever temperature of 41.8 degrees, which is 107.2 Fahrenheit in Isesaki, Gunma Prefecture today, surpassing last week's record of 41.2 degrees in Hyogo, Japan. According to the Japan Meteorological Agency, the government has announced measures to protect rice crops amid growing fears of climate-driven agricultural damage. For the first time in nearly a year, Israel is set to gradually allow the flow of goods into Gaza's private sector. The Israeli military body Kogat announced that a new mechanism will permit a limited number of vetted local merchants to import essential goods such as basic food items, baby formula, fresh produce, and hygiene supplies into the besieged enclave. The move aims to increase the volume of aid reaching to Gaza, where international monitors warn famine is unfolding, and images of starving civilians, including children, have shocked the world. Goods will be inspected at Israeli crossings, and payments will be monitored through secure bank transfers, with authorities emphasizing strict oversight to prevent exploitation by Hamas. Before the war, Gaza received about 608 trucks daily. Today, far fewer make it through, and humanitarian groups warn the situation is dire. This shift comes amid growing global pressure on Israel to ease the crisis and ensure more reliable aid access. Now we're joined by Vitor Vicente. He's a Middle East expert, joins us live from Ireland. Thank you for joining us today. Welcome to NewsX World. Now, given this limited nature of this aid and strict oversight measures, do you think this move will alleviate the dire humanitarian situation in Gaza, or is this insufficient in addressing the scale of crisis?
Thanks for having me. Just to make sure I understood the question, so it's about the aid, now how Israel is facilitating the aid into Gaza, because the connection is not great. Is that the question? Hello? Hello? I cannot hear you. Hello? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. I just would like you, if you don't mind, just to repeat the question, please, because the line was breaking. Do you mind repeat the question, please?
Let me repeat the question for you. So, do you think that this move by Israel will elevate the dire humanitarian situation in Gaza, or will it be insufficient in addressing the scale of this crisis?
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I think this new measure that is taking place today will be a massive benefit for everyone involved in the region, especially for the Gazans. So the Israelis have been doing the right thing since the beginning. It's not an easy situation, given that the Hamas is infiltrated among the population. So as much as Israel wants to help the local populations, there is always a risk that the aid will go to the wrong hands. So in that context, they have tried several ways to support the population. At the beginning, to the best of my memory, the aid arrived by air. Now they are trying to get into the private parts of Gaza, and I think this has been designed in a way that Hamas won't get on the way, because we also saw footage of situations where the aid was being distributed. The Gazans were waiting for it, and some of them are actually starving and having a very hard time. But unfortunately, there are agents on the way. So it's not as easy to reach the populations, because there are a lot of bad intentions among the Hamas authorities. It's on Hamas interest that the Gazans struggle, because that's their strategy. You know, the more that the Gazans suffer, the more sympathy they will receive from the Western world. And we all know that is a strategy to enrich the top Hamas leaders, because they get support, they get financial injections every time that the Western world sees that the Gazans are suffering. Now Israel on the field is trying to make their best. I believe this measure will improve a lot the conditions of the Gazans. If it's sufficient, time will tell, because at this point we are already almost at 2 years when it comes to war. And of course, things are not easy, but that's not just in Gaza. Like, imagine every country that has been going through the same, especially when the place has been under very poor conditions even before the war. We all know the poverty was already a thing in Gaza. This is not new. And the war didn't make it any better. Of course, it has aggravated. But I think Israel is making every bit of effort that the Gazans can make their way through the war. And not only the Gazans, we need to remind the audience that also the hostage, the Israeli hostage, they are starving. We also footage that remind of the Holocaust, and these people are not receiving the support that we would expect from NGOs. Like, none of the hostage at this point has received any visit from the Red Cross, and I think that's appalling.
Thank you, Writer, for sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we move on to our next news as well. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is reportedly mediating between US President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin. According to Israeli media, Netanyahu has held both public and private calls with Putin in recent days. The move comes amid escalating tensions after Trump threatened new sanctions on Russia and ordered nuclear submarines repositioned. Trump has sent a special envoy to push for a ceasefire in Ukraine. He warned Moscow of fresh sanctions if no progress is made by Friday. Netanyahu's role could be crucial in easing the standoff between Washington and Moscow. Now we go back to our guest discussion with Vitor Vicente. He's a Middle East expert, joins us live from Ireland. Thank you, Victor, for staying with us. Now, given Israel's complex geopolitical position, why is Israel thinking or pushing for mediation between Putin, Russia, and US?
Yeah, so I think at this point, the Israel diplomacy is critical. We all know that the image of the Israeli government has been damaged by multiple agents across the world, the likes of the media, NGOs, corporations, press, you name it. So Netanyahu needs to make a huge effort to maintain relationships with the top leaders across the planet. So it's very positive that he's in direct contact with figures such as Trump and Vladimir Putin, because those guys, they detain a power that probably any other leader detain. So I'm happy to see that he is in conversations with both. To the best of my knowledge, Trump and Vladimir Putin are not as close as they were, say, a year ago when, or even before when Trump was elected. And it's important that Israel maintains good relationships, good relations with both, especially because we don't want to end up in a situation where Russia is too close to Iran and will still support the Ayatollah regime, even if it's just on the surface. We know there are still ties because that's just geopolitics. But on the other hand, there are plenty of Russians living in Israel, and it's good that Netanyahu reminds Putin of that. Now, I know that some of these Russian-speaking population is not necessarily Russian, it's Ukrainian, and that's something related to the Soviet history outcome. But still, I'm happy that he's out and about, in touch with relevant individuals, and that's key. We all know that nowadays the way that the leaders get on will determine the politics direction. So I'm happy to see Netanyahu in the direct contact with figures as relevant as those two, especially because Israel at this point is very much isolated, and I don't think that is going to change that much, at least in the next 2 years. So if he doesn't get on with Trump and Putin, then Israel will be in a much worse situation. So I hope the efforts will be positive and the result will be the best possible for the Israeli population.
And Vitor, how might this intervention impact Israel's broader relationship with the other countries in Middle East, like countries like Iran and Syria?
Yeah, it's good that you mentioned Syria and Iran, because those countries were or are, in the case of Iran, they are very close to Russia. So if I would be an Iranian regime person, I would fear the proximity between Israel and Iran. Israel and Russia. You don't want your close friend to be a friend with your enemy, and that's what is happening. And perhaps if Israel can increase their influence in the Middle East, that can also contribute to the expansion of the so-called Abraham Accords. I can see at this point that, for instance, Saudi Arabia is in the pipeline. It was for some time, but it was more of a rumor than anything else. But if Israel managed to have a decent or at least fair relation with Russia, that can send a message even to the likes of Syria, which okay, they turned their back on Russia, but still there's someone to consider within the region. So I think if Israel gets along with Russia, that can somehow determine the relationship with the vicinity.
Yes, thank you very much, Vitor Vicente, for sharing that. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next news as well. The Israeli military has said that it intercepted a missile from Yemen early today after air raid sirens sounded in several areas across the country. The Houthis have claimed responsibility for this attack. Let's listen into what the Houthi military spokesperson Yahya Saree had to say.
نفذت القوة الصاروخية في القوات المسلحة اليمنية عملية عسكرية نوعية استهدفت مطار اللد في منطقة يافا المحتلة، وذلك بصاروخ باليستي فرط صوتي نوع فلسطين 2، وقد حققت العملية هدفها بنجاح بفضل الله.
The Iran-backed proxy group, which controls the most populous parts of Yemen, has been repeatedly with missiles attacking Israel with missiles and attacked shipping lanes in what it says are acts of solidarity with the Palestinians in Gaza. Most of the missiles launched by Houthis have been intercepted by Yemen. Now we go back to our guest discussion with Vitor Vicente. He's a Middle East expert, joins us live from Ireland. Thank you, Vitor, for staying with us. Now, how might this incident influence Israel's defense and diplomatic priorities in the coming months, particularly regarding its security posture in the Red Sea?
It's interesting that the Houthis are back on the radar, because I was asked yesterday by my girlfriend whether the situation in Israel is getting any better after I visited in June, and I mentioned that we were back to the daily routine. So unfortunately, the daily routine is also constituted of attacks coming from the proxies, and the Houthis are part of it in these current times. So I'm not surprised that they are again attacking at targets like the airport or some other premises along the Israeli coast. They did it in the past. We all know that one of the strategies they have in place is to attack Israeli economy, and there are many fields where the Israeli economy thrives, and for sure one is tourism. So they don't do it out of nothing. They know that if they manage to provoke significant damage at Tel Aviv airport, like some airlines will be hesitant to fly to Israel, and that's not a good thing for the Israeli society, because many people depend on the tourism influx. So they don't want that to happen. The Israelis don't want that to happen, and I'm sure they won't just sit and watch. There will be a proper response happening very soon. And actually, I wouldn't be surprised that at some point the Israeli Defense Force decide to approach in a similar fashion the Houthis as they did in June towards the Iranians, because at some point this whole infrastructure in Yemen needs to be stopped.
Thank you.
So I think it's just a matter of time.
Yes, thank you very much, Vitor Vicente, for joining us today at NewsX World and sharing your insight all the way from Ireland. Now we move on to our next news. Australia has signed a landmark $6.5 billion deal with Japan to build next-generation warships in Tokyo's most significant defense export since lifting its military ban in 2014. Under the agreement, Mitsubishi Heavy Industries will deliver 3 upgraded Mogami-class frigates by 2029. These warships, designed for anti-submarine surface strike and air defense, require just 90 sailors. The deal will strengthen security ties amid growing Chinese presence in the Indo-Pacific. This is Australia's biggest naval purchase since its nuclear sub deal under AUKUS. Officials say final production and pricing talks will wrap by next year. Let's listen into what the Australian Defence Minister Richard Marles and Japan's Defence Minister Gen Nakatani had said.
Clearly the biggest defence industry agreement that will ever have been struck between Japan and Australia. In fact, it's really one of the biggest defence exports that Japan has ever engaged in. And as I say, it is a very significant moment in our bilateral relationship. It's going to be really important in terms of giving our Navy the capability to project. An impactful projection is at the heart of the strategic challenge which is identified in the Defence Strategic Review.
この選定結果は、我が国の高い技術力への信頼性、また自衛隊とオーストラリア軍との相互運用性の重要性を評価をされた証と考えております。我が国にとって特別な戦略的パートナーであるオーストラリアとの安全保障協力、これをさらなる高みに引き上げる大きな一歩となるものでありまして、オーストラリア政府の決定を歓迎をいたします。
Now, for this discussion, we are joined by Dr. Satoru Nagao. He's a fellow at Hudson Institute, joins us live from Tokyo, Japan. Thank you, Doctor, for joining us today. Good to see you. Now, how does this deal between Australia and Japan reshape the security dynamics within Indo-Pacific, particularly in regard to China's growing influence there?
Yes, this is a significant step. Because when we check the counter-China strategy, how to maintain the balance is very important. And in this case, countries around China should cooperate each other. But military capability in the countries around China is not enough because China improves their military capability very rapid pace and other countries did not. So in this case, Japan should export weapons to raise the military power of the other country around China. And in case of the weapon export is very useful to strengthen relation with Japan and other because weapon is a sophisticated machine but used in rough condition, so it is easy to broken. In this case, supply of the repair parts and supply of the ammunition also, because the weapon use ammunition, is very important. So that's why if the country buy weapon from other country, from supplier is influential to the buyer of the weapon. So buyer rely on the supplier. This is a weapon-related relation between the two countries. So that's why the weapon export is very important to raise the cooperation against China in the country around China. But Japan lacks the skill to sell the weapons. What happened is there are many failures tank about Japan plan to export but failed, submarine failed, was ambitious plane failed, always fail. So, but the only exceptional case is Japan succeed is export radar to the Philippines, or the unicorn antenna system of the destroyers of the India. That was precious successful weapon export from Japan to others. So that's why this time Japan export 11 destroyer frigate to the Australian Navy. It's far bigger than the other example. This is the first step to provide naval ship or other weapon system to other country and to strengthen the relation between Japan and other to counter China. So that's why this is a significant step and the first step as a weapon export with Japan. And Japan will be the security provider in the Indo-Pacific with India, of course, great power and great security provider, and Australia and the United States as a Quad, and of course the Southeast Asian country who try to resist China's dominance. Vietnam, the Philippines will be main customer and a good partner for Japan in the near future. That is, this is a step to become such kind of situation. Thank you.
And Dr. Satoru, now, how might this deal affect Japan's relationships with neighboring countries like China, South Korea, given the sensitivity around military exports in the region?
In case of China, of course, this is not comfortable because China export weapons to the Southeast Asian country, and the Southeast Asian countries rely on the supply of the repair parts ammunition from China. So that's why if the Japan provides weapons instead of China, Japan could be the rival for China. And Japan's purpose is how to maintain military balance with China. This means that, of course, this is not comfortable for China. In case of South Korea, indeed, South Korea is a little bit complex feeling about it because as a weapon provider, South Korea is the main provider. South Korea export weapons to Indonesia, South Korea will export weapons to Philippines, India also, and Poland also. As many countries received weapons from South Korea until now. So that's why if Japan is the main weapon provider in this region, of course, built from South Korea do not worry about attack from Japan, but South Korea worry about Japan as a rival competitor of the weapon export.
Yes.
So that's why built from China, of course, uncomfortable this is, and built from South Korea, a little complex, uncomfortable, but something could happen. But without Japan as a security provider, it is impossible to resist China because of the geographical location, because of the rapid military modernization of China. So that's why this is needed,
Yes.
and this is very significant step in this region.
Thank you very much, Dr. Satoru Nagao, for sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now we move on. United States and Rwanda have agreed on a massive migrant deal. As per the deal, 250 vetted migrants are being deported from the U.S. Rwanda will receive a U.S. grant providing training, healthcare, and housing to the deportees. The deal also specifies that the deportees must have no pending criminal cases, while child sex offenders are excluded from the agreement. Critics question Rwanda's human rights record and amid broader third country deportation efforts. The U.S. has sent an initial list of 10 individuals to Rwanda for approval. All those who are accepted are allowed to choose or to leave Rwanda later. Financial support team terms remain undisclosed, and the agreement allows mutual expansion beyond 250 migrants. The pact is part of President Trump's aggressive immigration strategy, leveraging third country deportation seen in deals with South Sudan and Eswatini. Rwanda had previously had a 2022 UK deportation agreement which was never implemented. Now we go back to our guest discussion with Dr. Satoru Nagao. Thank you, Doctor, for staying with us now. Now, with Rwanda agreeing to accept these deported migrants under specific conditions, how do you assess the feasibility and long-term effectiveness of this arrangement?
This is reversible because you have already mentioned in the past, the United Kingdom tried to conclude with Rwanda to accept immigrants to the United Kingdom, stay in the Rwanda before the UK accepts formally. So that's why Rwanda has a facility to accept these immigrants to the United Kingdom. Now, in the politics in the United Kingdom, finally they do not use this system. So that's why the facility is there, but this agreement hasn't exercised it. So now, now the United States concludes this agreement with Rwanda, and Rwanda accept 250 immigration from the United States. So that's why Rwanda has a facility, and Rwanda has a policy to accept these immigrants. So that's why this is feasible. A little interesting is Rwanda's policy. In this view from America, view from the UK, indeed Rwanda is relatively trustworthy because they developed well. After the civil war in the Rwanda, there are many genocides. This age was a nightmare age for Rwanda. But after that, Rwanda changed their policy and developed very well. So that's why now Rwanda is leading country in Africa, and Rwanda try to be the bridge between the UK and America and Africa. So that's why Rwanda can do that, and Rwanda focusing on the immigrants who have the skill, who have the potential to develop Rwanda more. So that's why this is the system Rwanda focusing on. So recently, the Rwanda and Congo's matter is there, but the U.S. arrangement, the two countries, and the ceasefire has made. So under such kind of situations, this is a chance for Rwanda to agree with the United States, and Rwanda's policy is very fast to decide something. So that's why it has happened.
Thank you very much, Dr. Satoru Nagao, for joining us today and sharing your insight throughout our news. Well, that's all we have time for. We will continue to bring more news updates from around the world.